Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? That's great. Today we're going to be doing more literal equations. On the front side of your notes, we're actually not going to go through every one of these problems. I am, however, going to highlight some that I think are pretty important to know how to handle. So let's look at the circumference of a circle. It has the equation C is equal to 2 times pi times r, and it's asking us to get the r all by itself. So if we think about it for a minute, what operation is going on between 2 pi and r? They're all being multiplied together. So how do we undo multiplication? Great guess. We are actually going to divide both sides by what we don't want next to r. So we don't want the 2 and we don't want the pi. We don't want the 2 and we don't want the pi. So solving to get r all by itself, you would have c over 2 pi is equal to r. Another great one to look at is the area of a triangle. We are trying to get b all by itself. So if I get out my little highlighter, I want to get b all by itself. Does everybody see how there is a fraction in front of b and there's also a variable? What I recommend doing is first taking care of that fraction. So remember, whenever you have a fraction in front of a variable, you multiply both sides by the reciprocal. Good guess. So we're going to multiply by 2 over 1 to both sides. By doing that, our 1's cancel and our 2's cancel. So on the left-hand side, we have 2 times a over 1 is equal to b h. Let's think about this for a minute. If it's over 1, do we really need to write that part? No, we don't. So we can just say 2a is equal to bh. 2a is equal to bh. So again, the first thing I did was take care of that fraction. Now I'm going to re-highlight that b to really draw attention that that is what I'm trying to get rid of. And I ask myself, how do I get rid of that h that's next to the b? You guys are on fire right now. You are 100% correct. We do need to divide both sides by h. So 2a over h is equal to b. How is this feeling? Are you guys seeming to understand it? I'm so happy to hear that. As far as the front side goes, there's a lot of other good equations here. I will go ahead and just write down the answers if you want to hit pause and try some of them on your own. So go ahead and hit pause now. Welcome back. So if you went ahead and tried doing these ones on your own, I have the answers written down for each of the boxes. You do not have to go through and do these ones. However, I just have it there for extra reference and extra practice. Area of a circle solving for r is probably the most complicated one, but it's okay. If you didn't get that one, don't worry about it. That's a little advanced for what we're doing for this particular class at this time. Great, so let's go to the back side of your notes now. These equations right here, solving for y, are probably the most important lesson that we're going to do with literal equations. It's going to be really similar to what we've done yesterday and on previous videos. However, I want you guys to pay close attention to how things change when we have some numbers involved to it. The first step that we're always going to do, if you wanted to write these down, is we're going to add or subtract the x term. We add or subtract the x term because we're moving the entire piece to the other side. After you get done doing that, you are going to do step 2, which is divide every single term by whatever number is in front of y. So we divide all terms by y's coefficient. Let's go ahead and see how those steps look. So if we start with letter A, we have 3x minus 4y is equal to 12. Step 1 tells us we need to add or subtract our x term. So if we look at just the x term, does everybody see how that x term is positive? So to move it to the other side, we're actually going to start by subtracting it. So minus 3x and minus 3x. When I do that, I've now officially moved that x term to the other side. What I'm left with is a negative 4y is equal to 12 minus 3x. Again, to recap, I am trying to get this y all by itself. Step 2 tells me I need to divide every single term by y's coefficient. So if you look in front of that y, we have a negative 4 in front of it. So I'm going to divide the y term by it, the number by it, and the x term by it. That makes those negative 4's cancel out. So I get y is equal to 12 divided by a negative 4 gives me what? Right, it gives me negative 3. I'm carefully watching my signs. Now I go on to the x term. Negative 3 over negative 4. I can't simplify that, but I do know that two negatives give me a positive 3 over 4. So this term right here, negative 3x over negative 4, turns into a positive 3x over 4. Or you could write it as a positive 3 over 4x. How does that feel? Let's go ahead and try another one because these steps can be a little tricky. So looking at letter B, we have a negative 2x plus 3y is equal to 9. Again, step 1 is we are going to add or subtract the x term. It is a negative 2x. So how do I move a negative 2x to the other side? You guessed it. We are going to go ahead and add it. So add 2x to both sides. When I do that, on my left-hand side, I am left with a 3y. On the right-hand side, I have my 9 plus 2x. Step 2 tells me I need to divide all terms by y's coefficient. So the coefficient in front of my y is a 3, meaning I need to divide the 3y by 3, 9 by 3, and 2x by 3. When I do that, I get y all by itself, and now I divide. What is 9 divided by 3? Good job, it's 3. 2 over 3 I cannot reduce, so I simply leave that as plus 2 over 3. Don't forget your x, so plus 2 over 3x. Let's go ahead and try one more together. Looking at letter C. Again, I need to move my entire x term to the other side. So if we look only at that x term, my 7x is positive. So how do I move a positive 7x to the other side? You guys are on fire right now. We are going to minus 7x to both sides. When I do that, I bring down what's left. Remember, this is step 1. I have a 2y is equal to, carefully watch those signs, a negative 6 minus 7x. Step 2 says I need to divide by y's coefficient. So here's my y. What number's in front of the y? A 2. So I'm going to divide every single piece by that 2. When I do that, I have y all by itself, and now I divide. What is negative 6 divided by 2? Perfect, it's negative 3. And if I go on to the next one, negative 7 over 2, I'm going to write it up here, negative 7 over 2. If you look at it, we cannot reduce that at all. It does equal negative 3.5y, but knowing what's going to happen in the future, if you can't reduce the fraction, leave it as that fraction. So it's a negative 7 over 2 with an x attached to it. I feel like you all are doing a fantastic job with this. However, I would like to try letter D with us also. So looking at letter D, starting with step 1, remember, we need to move over that negative 12x. There's my negative 12x. So how do I move over a negative? Go ahead and take a moment and think about it and write it down. So for step 1, when you added that 12x over, did you get negative 6y equals 30 plus 12x? Fantastic! You're on fire today. So now step 2 says we need to divide by y's coefficient. So go ahead and take a moment, here's my y, and divide everything by y's coefficient. You do it on your paper while I do it on mine. Okay, so when I divided everything by that negative 6, I carefully watched my signs. I have 30 divided by negative 6 gives me a negative 5. Then when I moved on to my x term, I have 12 divided by negative 6 gives me negative 2, and I carried down my x. So getting y by itself, I have a negative 5 minus 2x. Go ahead and hit pause and try out letters E and F. When you finished, you will see me silently work through the work on both of those problems. So hit pause now and try E and F. Welcome back. So looking at letter E, the first thing I had to do was add that 2x over. Then I ended up with 2y equals 8 plus 2x. From there, I recognized that there was a 2 attached to the y, so I divided every single term by that 2. So my final answer was y is equal to 4 plus 1x. Now, we don't have to go around telling people that we have one of something. So if you wanted to write it as y is equal to 4 plus x, that is the exact same answer, and more so how you would be seeing it seen on answer keys. Looking at letter F, carefully recognizing the fact that my 9x is positive, I subtracted 9x to both sides. So I ended up with a negative 3y is equal to negative 12 minus 9x. And then I saw that I had a negative 3 in front of my y, so I divided every single term by negative 3. When I did that, I end up with y is equal to a negative 12 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 4. And a negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a positive 3. So notice I wrote that as a plus sign. So a positive 3x. Awesome job today. Go ahead and look at the homework page that is also on our haiku pages. And that is the homework if you were absent. If you have any questions, of course, see your teacher. I hope you guys had a great time learning today. Go Team Math! Talk to you soon. Bye.